thanks for clicking into another edition of Sasquatch Encounters.
And I look up, and there he is. And big does not begin to describe this fellow. In my youth, I was a bouncer, and I met at the nightclub I was bouncing, the legendary wrestler Andre the Giant. He dwarfed Andre. So there's this huge male Sasquatch standing less than 20 yards away. Knee-high growth. There's no real trees or anything around. So I got a very clear shot of him, and he's got a clear view of me, too. He seemed about as surprised to see me as I was to see him, because he got that kind of look where the eyes widen and the head goes back a little bit, and kind of confused look for a moment. We're talking something that was basically very close to 8 feet tall, at least 3 times my weight, and I'm about 300. Huge. I mean, arms like tree trunks. Big, broad face, high cheekbones, kind of a Neanderthal nose, heavy brow, hair coming back from the brow, large dark eyes. A kid that I say he looked like Ernest Borgnine, but it's really not too far from the truth. Later on, I started referring to him as Big Ernie because it's more polite than referring to him as Big Black or Big Sauce or whatever. Big Ernie was standing there looking at me, and I was standing there looking at him, and I froze. I have never been so terrified in my life because, again, he was huge.
Right. Out of nowhere from my left, this thing jumped down. And if I'd have probably been a little less petrified, I probably could have reached out and touched this thing. When it hit the ground, it landed on 2 feet. It didn't make any noise. It had kind of long black hair. I'll never forget that hair. It was, like I say, this thing for, about a 10-year-old kid, arm's length, it was so close. I mean, you could feel the breeze off of it when it went by.
Wow.
All I seen was this big black mass in front of me, and it was standing there for a brief moment, and I could see this hair. The hair will never escape my memory on that. It was long and black. It was kind of coarse in a way, like a thicker hair would, not like a human hair, so just a little bit thicker it seemed like, because the color was so deep. I'll never forget that color. But as soon as it hit the ground and stopped for just a split second, it shot off to the right. And it tore through the woods like nothing was there. I'd never seen anything move like that.
These things would continuously bombard us. There was a mountain close by, like 40 feet behind the cabin. And these things, it's a 3,000-foot mountain, and these things would continuously bombard us with rocks off this mountain. And I'm talking about rocks the size of your fist. I'm not talking about pebbles.
Right.
Things that if hit you, it was going to hurt you.
Sure.
They would hit vehicles. They would hit ATVs. They would hit the cabin, the roof of the cabin. There were several outbuildings around there, and they would hit them. Sure.
Let me ask you, you keep referring to they. Did you feel like there was more than one throwing them?
Oh, I know there were more than one, and I'll tell you how here in just a second.
Sure.
They were playing with us, Ed. Let's face it, Ed. If those guys would wanted this, they could have come down off that mountain and walked right through that cabin, and there ain't nothing we could have done.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. But they didn't do it. But they would ram the side of the cabin. One time when we went out and looked, and there was an indention about 8 foot up. Okay, and that was either a head or a shoulder. We're thinking it was a shoulder. But I wasn't concerned about their aggressiveness. They're very curious. Lots of eye shine. This was late at night, early in the morning again, laying on his bed. His bed was next to a window. But my bed was next to a window, too, and I can tell you, I didn't sleep. I kind of slept with one eye open. I kind of scooted over as far from the windows. It could be those windows. Some of them had screen on them. Some didn't. Some had a partial screen. Well, this guy, woke up, the guys in the cabin woke up and said, hey, what, this guy was saying, stop it, quit it. And of course it's pitch black and everybody hits a headlamp or flashlight, and they're counting heads and everybody's in there and they say, what's going on? He goes, it pushed me.
Oh, wow.
I said, well, what do you mean it pushed you? He was laying on his side with his back to the window. A hand reached in the window and pushed him on the hip, just kind of, would roll him over on his stomach.
Right, just a little nudge.
Exactly, twice.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
Okay. That's crazy, Ed.
Yeah, that would get my attention.
It just made it sound like that, and we looked over to our right, and it was crouched down behind the bushes, like in the shadow part of the trees. We saw it stand up, looking straight at us, and then he just turned around and started walking through the woods, turned around and just left, and as he left, he was you could hear him walking through the woods, and you could just hear the trees knocking into each other. It sounded like firecrackers. You could hear him where he was going, and I'm pretty sure he was going quite fast because we just stood there and listened, and then we were just stunned. We were just standing there what did we just see? And